to start by saying congratulations for making it this far. I know I'm the last speaker between you and lunch, so you're more excited to see me than I am to see you. So I really wanted to commend you on your bravery. You signed up to listen to teenagers talk for 6 hours on a Saturday. That's almost as brave as me coming up here in a TED stage in Oklahoma to talk about being transgender when we have no anti-discrimination policies or legislative practices that would protect me or the most marginalized inside of my community. But all seriousness aside, seriously, stick it over there, put a pen in it. We're gonna get back to it later. I'd like to get us started on a little bit of a lighter note. We're gonna play a game together. The rules are simple, there are only two. Keep it honest and vulnerable. I know those seem like two hard things to achieve with a complete stranger, but today, we're gonna cultivate an environment where everybody is welcome and we're as inclusive as possible. All you have to do is stand or sit in accordance to questions, and if you're unable, raise or lower your hand. So those of you who know somebody who is trans or gender non-conforming, please rise or raise your hand at this time. If you're standing because you just met me, I don't count, we don't know each other that well. Now, go ahead and sit if you've ever misgendered a trans person and didn't know the right way to apologize or where to go from there. Now, go ahead and sit if you've ever had a question you wanted to ask a transgender person but didn't know if it was appropriate or acceptable. Now go ahead and sit if you've wanted to ask somebody how they identify or what pronouns they use, but didn't know the correct terminology or way to go about it. Now go ahead and sit if you've ever asked a transgender person about their body parts or what bathroom they use. Instead of sitting, you can find the back door. It's right over there. You're disqualified. I'm just kidding. Look around you. Those that are still standing are one of two things, liars or the perfect trans allies. But unlike these guys, I'm going to keep it real with you. I have a problem, and most of us in this room do. My name is Max, and I have a lot of internalized transphobia. And that's because the way our culture talks about trans and gender nonconforming individuals has created that of an us and them mentality, where lack of understanding breeds resentment. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys about 12 applicable steps you can bring to your daily lives to not only be the best you, but the most inclusive you. So those of you who remain sitting, you didn't know a trans or gender nonconforming person, I hate to be the one that breaks it to you, but you absolutely do. You just didn't know that they were trans. While we make up less than 2% of the population, those statistics grow every year. As we get access to more resources and the vocabulary to describe our struggle to others, we've been able to make a community that grows larger every passing day. Just because you didn't know they were trans doesn't mean they weren't. You see, on the slide behind me, I featured a couple photos of trans people like myself in my life. If there's anything you can see from those images, is that there's no one way to be trans, nor is there one way that transness looks like, talks like, performs like. Transness is simply the state of being trans, of transitioning, becoming. While we've always been this way, and while there is a historicity of transness, it's become more of a political debate, a partisan issue, than that of a politics of people just trying to live their best lives. Which means that you and I can take practical steps to be the best version of ourselves for the community that need our help to be uplifted. And we're gonna start by using the right pronouns. Now, how many of you in here have ever introduced yourself using your pronouns? Just a show of hands. Using your pronouns is such a simple way of showing the trans community that you are not only an ally, but you're somebody to seek in times of stress. By simply adding my name is Max and my pronouns are he, him, you show not only the trans people around you that you're going to support their struggle and care about their preferred pronouns, you show the cisgender people around you that it is normal and cool to introduce yourself using your pronouns. If only trans people are doing it, it's never going to catch on. We need people like you to show that this change of conversation is important and necessary. And when we change the way we have conversations, we're going to be able to practice a linguistic awareness. While this seems like a lot of big words, I'm going to break it down. A common saying our moms used to tell us, think before you speak. Sometimes the words you use can portray a meaning beyond what you intended on the subconscious level. Words carry a lot of weight. So we're going to play a little bit of a game, a word recognition game. When I say congressman, what do you see? When I say doctor, who do you see? When I say lawyer, what about school teacher? I bet for the last one, it's probably the only one you pictured a woman. And it's because we've been bred to think that these masculine normatives, where the man is the focal point and everything else is an outlier, structures the way that we have conversation and has created in us the paradox of, well, it's man, woman, or nothing else. And whenever we use better language, when we're more intentional about the words we use by calling it a Congress member or male person, seems like a small change, but these small changes make it possible to create completely new realities. Because when a young woman of color hears congressman, she doesn't picture someone who looks like her. But when she hears congressperson, maybe she can see herself as the next one running for that Senate seat. And to do this, we're going to have to challenge everything that we think we know. Did you know that in states across the nation and then in nations across the globe, conceptions of gender change? Gender is subjective, and different cultures view it in different ways. And that's because gender is, for the most part, a construct that emerged after settler colonialism. And so while we believe what we know about men and women is true, truly it is just a sign of the times that people like me are coming to challenge you on what you think you're sure of. Who is a man? What are they supposed to look like? And how do these performative aspects of gender force our young people to meet constraints that limit their abilities, their opportunities? If we told young men and young women that they could be anything, and we challenged them to be the best version of themselves, not the best woman or the best man or the best male nurse, just the best nurse, what will they be capable of? And if we learn what we're capable of, we're going to go out into the world and share that. And you should do that by participating in events in the queer community. I'm going to admit it. Drag shows are going to be loud. Bingo night is going to be insane. When you go to the karaoke bar, you're going to be overwhelmed. But it's important that you get out of the Oklahoma echo chamber and start to listen to people who are going to challenge you on all these preconceived notions you have about trans people, about gender, about queer people and the community itself. So after you've participated in the community, you're going to see the dire need we have for financial resources. Young trans men are at a 1 in 2 statistical likelihood of attempting suicide. Thankfully, my parents have resources and money, so my attempt stayed just that, an attempt. I think about what would happen if they didn't have the money to put me in therapy or get me into the right hospital settings that would give me the medicine and the help that I needed to get the vocabulary I would later use to describe my struggle. If I didn't have these resources, I wouldn't be here today and I wouldn't look this good. So it's really important that people like you research aspects of the community that could use your financial support. Things like the Trevor Project, things like your local homeless youth shelter for queer kids that get kicked out of their homes. We not only live a pretty hard life, we live a pretty expensive life. Being trans sucks, but it also costs a lot of money. And that's where you can help. And you can also help by recognizing your complacency. I'm sure we've all heard the term locker room talk or had friends that said things that were kind of iffy. Well, that's the opportunity that you should take to make a stand against transphobia, queerphobia, homophobia. Whenever you tell your friends, that joke wasn't funny. What if you said it this way instead? Or that person actually doesn't use those pronouns. Recognizing your complacency and the complacency of your friend group inside of a larger system of violence will go a long way towards stemming a lot of the hatred that people feel. Once, 4 weeks ago, I was at a skating rink and somebody referred to me as a transsexual. I had 3 friends with me and I didn't know what to say. Everybody around me kind of laughed it off because to them, it was just words. But to me, those words were the start of something a lot scarier. Violence always starts somewhere. And it may start with a joke that you think is funny, but the people around you don't. So if you tell your friends when they're being inappropriate and you hold them accountable for their behaviors, you could change the whole culture and dialogue around you in the group. And you can only do that if you get educated. It is hard to know everything about everything. I admit that I am in a cycle of constantly learning to be the best Max that I can be. And sometimes that's hard. But sometimes we have to take it upon ourselves to meet new people, to get out in the community, to ask questions, to use Google. The internet is free. It's a research I ask that you all use. I know that you have it. And to learn more about the queer community, learn more about the struggles we face and how you can help. We all have unique talents, passions, gifts. What you offer as an ally to the community is not the same as what anybody else can, which is why we need people just like you to apply their unique skills and to offer support and affirmation during transition. I got billed for my first trip to the hormone replacement therapy clinic. It was $550. That means that poor people that lack access to health insurance and have no means of financially providing for medical transition may be slow or sporadic. They may not be able to access the hormone treatments that could save their lives or the gender reaffirmment surgeries that will put them in a body that they finally recognize and love. The trans people in your life may change pronouns, may not do things the way that you would expect them to, may change their name. I don't know how many of you in here picked your own name, but it's hard. I'm not sure I got the right one yet. I need people like you to support me in the transition as I work towards finding the best version of Max that I can be. Which means that you'll have to learn what is and is not okay to ask. I know that this can be kind of weird to talk about, but nobody wants to tell you what they've got in their pants, and neither do I. So if your first question to trans people is about what body parts they have, you might want to question where your bioessentialist notions of gender come from. Do you believe that gender only stems from body parts? Or do you believe that gender is more performative? Do you think that there are more aspects to womanhood and manhood than the pieces of the puzzle? I'm sure that you do. It's the same thing for trans folks. So just like your mom used to say, there's a no-no square. We have those too, and we don't want to talk about it. And the best way of avoiding these hard conversations is truly just to love us. I know that this is the hardest step. We have disagreements. I'm sure many of you don't understand what I'm talking about or what the transgender community faces. But truly, we are all one and the same. Folks, just trying to get by. And while it may be a little bit harder for me sometimes to get by, it's important that we act together to do the best that we can. And to do that, I need you to pour love and support into me and into my community. And so the best way to show that you love the trans people in your life is to say it. Say it. I love you. I support you. I'm going to be here for you. It's that simple. I know there is a lot of other things you could do, truly 11 other steps, but the most basic is just tell the trans people in your life that you love and value them. Because sometimes it's hard to be like this in a body that you don't belong inside of. So my challenge to you, get on Google, get a little bit more educated, and then after that, pour love into the trans people in your life.